This is Bill Brady, One United Body, doing a recording that is the fifth in an introductory series on apostles and prophets functioning in the age of Melchizedek and above. In the last recording, I spoke about leadership. In this recording, I'm going to speak about some of the different kinds and roles for leadership in heavenly realms. I'm taking this from my experience of functioning in various levels of leadership in heavenly realms since I entered into heavenly realms. My entire experience in heavenly realms has been with Jane Johnson in what was initially called Ecclesia framework or Ecclesia framework, and what is now called One United Body. I have done many different roles, many different leadership roles during that time. I functioned as an encounter group facilitator. I functioned as a bench facilitator or leader. I functioned as a forerunner. I functioned as a father. I functioned at different levels of fathering. First, as an apostle, and later in higher levels of fathering. And each of these different functions is something that is needed. Jane and I together function as heads for One United Body, which is both a body and a house, depending on where people are in their journey. They are part of One United Body as being part of a body. If they're further along on their journey, they're part of One United Body as a house. Jane is the first father. She was the founder of what was initially called Ecclesia or Ecclesia framework, which became One United Body. And she is the driving force behind its beginning. I wasn't here at that time. I joined her later. And the two of us together currently function in headship for the house, with her functioning, as I said, as first father, which is a kind of headship. Father's a kind of headship. Out in heavenly realms as a whole, I see quite a few forerunners. Those forerunners are those that go out in front of other people follow them. They see the revelation of newer and higher places in heavenly realms, and they go there first, and others follow them into places that they have already gone into. This is a leadership function, functioning as a forerunner. As is fathering, fathers train others to function in places and names, realms, cities, and so on in heavenly realms. So I functioned at all these levels and entered into these different functions in most cases without really knowing too many other people that were functioning in them, so that in each case I was forerunning it. I mean, Jane had done some of these before I did, but and we can watch Ian and Mike and others as forerunners. We did watch others as forerunners and see what they were doing, but there was revelation that we received that was revelation that we weren't hearing from anybody else. Now, they may have been receiving it too, but it wasn't public that we saw at the time. So each of these different levels or kinds of leadership functions that I mentioned is something that we need to train others into. For me, I had already been called as an apostle. I'd previously gone through prophetic training as a prophet. I had done preparation as a prophet, the character preparation over decades, and preparation as an apostle, excuse me, was added on top of that, which meant more preparation. Now, mind you, most preparation usually includes a certain degree of discomfort. Because things in your personality and the way you do things are pointed out to you, and you're not doing the way they need to be done in highest blueprint. You need to change how you're doing them, which involves change of who you are and what you're doing, and it's not comfortable. So this has been a decade-long process of preparation for me to get me prepared to function in the different places that I'm currently functioning and that I have functioned in over the course of my leadership journey. OUB needs people functioning at all these levels within the house, and there's a need for people to function in all these levels outside OUB. There's a need for other houses in heavenly realms to be founded. I see each house as being a stream of revelation that is something that everybody in that house flows in. And I see that the overall revelation given to all of us is a combination of the streams of many houses. Right now, that process of cross-pollination between houses is not functioning as fully as it needs to. That's one of the areas that Heavenly Realms needs to mature into. But there's a need for leadership to be trained at these various levels for these various functions. And in many cases, I mean, we can do some initial training, but the major way you get trained is what I call on-the-job training. You start in there and you do it, and then you learn as you go. You make some mistakes and you tweak things and adjust things and do them better as you learn, and you get better at it. Eventually, if you've got the level of leadership where you're going to be training other people, eventually you train other people to do things that you've been doing. So there's a need for all these kinds of leadership levels. Some of them require overall big picture kind of revelation and understanding, which I believe comes with being an apostle. That overall big picture understanding, revelation, being the overall strategic planner, thinker, and function for a major portion of the universal Heavenly Realms community. Think about Apostle Paul doing this kind of thing at the Kingdom Age level, where he was advancing the kingdom by founding new ecclesias, going into regions that had never heard the gospel before and preaching the gospel in that region, and founding ecclesias in various cities in that region. It was an overall grand strategy kind of big picture function, as well as an on-the-ground, boots on the ground kind of first person on site doing the on-site, on-the-ground functions as an apostle. So two levels. One's this overall strategic planning, which is a really big picture kind of thing. And he didn't do this on his own, of course. He did it with the Holy Spirit. And Yeshua, of course, was involved with this. And the Father's plan was the plan overall behind the whole thing. But then he also functioned as an apostle on the ground, first one into some areas. Later on, sent Timothy back to ecclesias that he had founded earlier. And Timothy also was an apostle, and he functioned there, but not at the strategic level that Paul had. He functioned on the ground level in one ecclesia or another, but not necessarily being the person that goes into these regions first, like Paul did. The different levels of leadership. You may have a calling to leadership at the highest levels of leadership. You may have a calling to leadership at a slightly lower level. And you might have a calling that's even lower than that. We need people to even simply just be facilitators of encounter groups and benches. Jane and I have been doing all the facilitation for quite a while. But you've got to have somebody that you trust before you can put them into that kind of place. You need to know that they know what they're doing and they have the same overall blueprint that's been implanted into them, that they are becoming the blueprint themselves. This is a high level of leadership where you actually have been given the blueprint and you become the pattern, you become the blueprint, and others follow you. This is the kind of thing that Yeshua did as the apostle. He is the pattern. He was the first to do it. There weren't apostles before Yeshua was the apostle. There were leaders, there were prophets functioning in leadership, people like Moses who had an overall big picture view and replaced Moses, trained Joshua, and Joshua then had that overall big picture view. David, as this, excuse me, second king of Israel, had a overall big picture view, and he passed it along to Solomon. And unfortunately, in American football terms, Solomon fumbled the ball. I don't know the proper terms for English football. Lost possession of the ball. Might even be, wasn't quite that bad, but he didn't follow the complete blueprint. As you know, the blueprint throughout the period of one king replacing another king after another king, where each king had sons and the sons became king after their father died, several different dynasties in the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. The plumb line, or the ruler by which any king was judged as to whether they were doing this according to the blueprint or not, was, did they live and function as a king like David did, or didn't they? David was the pattern for kingship. And Solomon got much of it right for a long period, for a period of time, but then he got derailed by too many wives and too many horses and too many chariots, and became an idolater, worshiping his wives' false gods. So there is a really big picture, overall grand strategy kind of level of leadership that Jane and I function, and you might not be able to see it from where you're watching from, but we're thinking in those terms and planning in those terms and seeking revelation about what exactly the pattern is. This is part of forerunning, is getting these blueprints. They are given to those kinds of forerunners, and the forerunners then live these blueprints for the first time, just like David lived kingship, because the guy before him, Saul, didn't get it right much at all. David learned from Saul, but most of what he learned from Saul was how not to be a king. David was taking notes, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that Saul did. So he did learn quite a lot from Saul, but it was by watching Saul fail. And David's the blueprint, and everybody that's a king after David follows the blueprint that David was given. This is comparable to Moses being given the blueprint for the tabernacle, or David being given the blueprint for the temple that his son Solomon eventually built. This is biggest strategic level, big picture leadership. Below that, there's various levels of leadership, down to the lowest levels of leadership, where we need people to function as an encounter group facilitator to facilitate people into their first experiences in heavenly realms as a group, because there's both personal journey and group journey, and people who are not leaders are going to do much of their journey into heavenly realms as part of a group. They do the group journey first, and then they begin to function in these things that the group has functioned in. They begin to function in them personally. People that are forerunners do the personal journey first, either individually or in a small group, a bench that's functioning as a forerunning bench, and then others follow them into what they have forerun. So we need leaders at all kinds of levels, and some of you are already functioning in leadership in the kingdom age. You're going to need to be brought up to speed on, between the kingdom age, there's the ecclesia age, and then the age of Melchizedek, and there's other ages above that. You need to be brought up to speed in those higher ages and personally enter into them. But you've already learned how to function in leadership. You've learned a lot of lessons about leadership. Many learned the hard way, and some learned the easy way, but you have a lot of leadership experience already. And we need people that have leadership experience to be willing to step into heavenly realms and get the heavenly realms training from us, get some additional training on how to function as a leader in these higher ages. But you've already got a head start because you already know how to function as a leader. And then there are others that have been following while we train you about heavenly realms at different ages, and you've got that down, but you need to learn how to function as a leader from the beginning, because you haven't done that in a context where you're leading other believers. You may have done that in the home, and you may have done that in the business world. You may have done it in the education world. You may have done it in other contexts where you function as a leader, but you need to learn how to function as a leader in the context of leading God's people on an individual and corporate basis. So there's people that are in all kinds of different places with respect to this leadership in heavenly realms with various levels of experience. This is what happens when people come into heavenly realms. They have varied backgrounds. And when we meet somebody who has already been in heavenly realms for a little while, we find, undoubtedly will find, that they have some experience in some areas in heavenly realms, and other areas of heavenly realms, they've got a big gap. All of us do. All of us have a gap of one kind or another in amongst our experience. You have multiple gaps, and they have to be filled in by being trained by someone who's already been trained in that area. Even the most extreme forerunners, the most extreme leaders that are way out in front of everybody else, still do have areas where they need to follow other forerunners and receive revelation from other people. No one can get it all themselves. Even the most extreme forerunner is not getting all the revelation that's needed. They get revelation in particular areas, but they don't get revelation in other particular areas, and they have to learn that revelation like everybody else does from somebody who has received that revelation. While at the same time, they are forging ahead as a forerunner in areas of revelation that they are receiving for the first time ever from anybody. Nobody else has received it, or at least nobody that they know has received it. They're not receiving that revelation from anybody else. They're just receiving it directly from heaven, from the Godhead. Even the most extreme forerunners need other forerunners to learn from. This is one of the things that forerunners have to learn, that you can't get it all yourselves. You can't get all the revelation yourself. You cannot just stay within your own stream and the revelation that you're receiving and passing along to the people that are following you. You do need to check out revelation around you. Now, Jane is really, really good at this. She is always aware about who is saying what, and she's evaluating it to see whether that's true or not. She discards some of it. She receives some of it. Some that she discards, she'll then function in a way, in a way to correct it. She'll speak to correct that that untruth, so that the heavenly realms community as a whole doesn't all go down a rabbit hole that's not got truth in it. So different levels of leadership, you have a place. If you're called to leadership, you have a place somewhere. The few extreme forerunners are called to start their own from the beginning, like Jane did. I wasn't called to that. I'm an extreme forerunner, but I wasn't called to start something initially by myself. Not OUB anyway. I mean, there's other things that I may be the first one to start, but I'm definitely doing a lot of following along with doing a lot of leading. And I see this as a necessary revelation that all of us have a combination of following and leading to do. Some more leading and less following, and some more following and less leading, but all of us have some level to do. Even those who are not function as a trainer at all in any way, still can be the first person to share a new truth with somebody who doesn't have that truth yet. You can be the one that sows that seed for the first time into somebody, and you didn't receive that on your own as revelation by yourself. You received it from somebody else who had received it, or from somebody else who had received it from somebody else who had received it, and so on. But still, you can be the one that gives that revelation for the first time to someone else who hasn't ever seen it before. So all of us have some kind of leadership function. Okay, so I wanted you to see some of the various levels of leadership that are within heavenly realms, and to begin to see what you are called to. Many people start at the bottom and work their way up. And some people that have already functioned in leadership in the kingdom age are already functioning in leadership, probably mid-level or something, or maybe even they're people to get out in front of everybody, but they haven't yet had the revelation about the age of Melchizedek or higher ages, and they need to get that from somebody else because they didn't get it themselves. So you get an idea. This is a survey of different kinds and levels of leadership.